original letter from the mayor. We found it. Thank you all very much. Have a great 2005. You're on.
I'm on. Okay, I'm sorry, we're having a little trouble with the mouse. You may not be able to see this, but this is the blue book of the City Hall of Kansas City, 1901. I don't know why the blue book is black, but we knew that the letter from the mayor was located in this book because that's what we had been told from the newspapers. That's what we were looking for.
You do have the roster of the Kansas City Livestock Exchange with a letter saying, will you kindly send me a copy of the roster of the membership of the Livestock Exchange, that the same may be enclosed with other papers of interest to posterity in a Century Ball strong box, which is to be sealed the night of the ball and inscribed for opening at the close of the next century. Thanking you in advance for your kind and prompt compliance with this request, I am yours truly, E.M. Clendenning, Secretary. Yeah, we can do that and put some
This
stuff
is
down.
difficult to remove, so I'm not going to take it out. And what it is the program of the Knife and Fork Club of Kansas City. Some great things. This is the officers and committee members of the Board of Trade of Kansas City, Missouri. Listing them alphabetically.
We have a beautifully bound copy of 5th Missouri Volunteers, 1899. And it's kind of hard to read. It's inscribed in the very front. Very hard to read. This little volume contains a sketch of a volunteer regiment of the United States organized in April or May 1898, not wholly found in official reports, and affords a view of the military methods of the time.
This is a letter from the Kansas City Providence Association. Providence Association is kind of like a community chest. It was an organizations that donated money and gave to support social causes. Enclosed will be found a brief statement of the work of the Providence Association for the past year. And it includes a brief report, an annual report, if you will, that they produce.
Okay. Guys, you know what the letter is? The mayor's letter. Yeah. Yeah, Game might have already put it on down below. Did you already put the mayor's letter down there?
This is a little brochure for the City National Bank of Kansas City. officers are R.M. Snyder, who's the president, James G. Streen, vice president, and George P. Snyder as the cashier. Beautifully illustrated item. Brochure for the famous waters of Excelsior Springs, Missouri, that explains why the waters are so beneficial.
Good afternoon. My name is Evan Fowler, and I had the pleasure of serving as Director of Communications for KC-150, and also had a dual responsibility as being part of the Time Capsule Committee for the new time capsule that's going to be presented this afternoon at 5 o'clock. And you get a chance to look at some of the things that our committee worked together to decide we're going into that box again at 5 o'clock. Of course, this is the Reed family here behind me, and they're getting a photograph of the letter from Mayor Reed, something I'm sure that they want to keep for many generations to come. And what I'm going to do here occasionally as we go throughout the afternoon until this box is empty is read some excerpts to you from some of the old newspapers, give you a little bit more background about the Century Ball, about the box, and David then will, as he finds items of particular interest, will describe those to you as well. As many of you can see the items are being laid out there on the table. Feel free to come up at your leisure and take a look at these items. Obviously, we didn't know it was in the box. From this point on, this is very kind of an unplanned, loose event, so very informal. But what I wanted to do is take a minute to read to you from the November 27th, 1900 Times. A couple of articles here that give you a little bit of background about the Century Ball. I'll read one of those articles and then we'll go back to Dave for just a few minutes as he pulls out more items. And by the way, this box is full of notes from folks who dropped notes in at that Century Ball. The Century Ball, the time is drawing near. Again, this was November 27th of 1900 when this article was written. Time is drawing near when Kansas City will have one of the greatest events that ever took place within her boundaries. The Century Ball is to be that event, and the scene will be Convention Hall. It is fitting that the ball should be held in this magnificent structure. Fitting that one of the greatest events of a closing century should be given in a product of that century. All the wealth, brains, and beauty of 100 years will be typified in this ball. All that art can produce and all that human ingenuity can devise. Those who have it in charge know that to make the ball the success it must be to be an appropriate finale of the century. There must be no hitches anywhere, and there will not be. This according to the newspaper. It will be a symphony in colors, a fancy dress ball without any cheap or tawdry features, not a masquerade ball or a fancy costume ball in the ordinary sense of the word. The fancy dress will be historical costumes of different periods of the century, and the committee has made this feature an especial study. Anyone wishing to select some costume and who is just a little foggy as to whether it can be right, can readily ascertain and set his mind at rest by consulting this committee. All loyal Kansas Cityans are pleased with the idea of the Century Ball. Of course, all will not be able to attend, but the many who cannot can at least express their goodwill and approval. Those who have the privileges of the dancing floor will be privileged indeed, while the thousands who will look on from the balconies will witness a spectacle such as they never saw before, and one which will linger in their memories long after other sights have been lost in the shadowy veil of forgetfulness. David, I'll turn it over to you for a few minutes.
picture.
book or associated
It
with something?
appears to be written to
Well,
a
it
descendant.
goes with that book. I don't know if you want Okay.
It comes from G.P. My German is not good.
Oh my. Siebenthaler, to the Honorable G.P. Siebenthaler, Jr., my descendant, living in the vicinity of Greater Kansas City in the year AD 2001, greetings. I take this auspicious occasion in addressing you, as I know you will surely be living near Kansas City at that time, January 1, 2001. Kansas City, no doubt, will cover the whole of Jackson County by that time, for we are now at this date, 1901, building or laying the foundation of a great city. We are just beginning to build parks and boulevards, which are destined to become the rival of the finest in the world, and other improvements, and our phenomenal growth are known and spoken of the world over. And we have the finest and best fire department in the world, as they have defeated in contest all comers the world over. Their last victory was in June 1900 in Paris, France, where they contested for the championship of the world. They met all nations and come home with the banner of victory flying high, having defeated their nearest rival by more than 100%. We are also second largest in packing house industry and have the largest single packing house in the world. And our livestock trade is also very large, having outdone the old city of St. Louis. And we handled more cattle in 1900 than St. Louis, St. Joseph, and Omaha combined. These three cities are all old rivals of Kansas City in the packing house and livestock business, but they are already left far in the distance. Oh my, should I keep on or should? Our banking business is increasing very rapidly each year. I do business with the Union National Bank. Our present convention hall was built by popular subscription, to which I subscribed. Was built in less than 90 days after a former hall had burnt down. There were thousands of people standing around the smoldering ruins with tears in their eyes to see the pride of their hearts in ashes. It burned down in less than 30 minutes, and we resolved then and there to raise another hall at once, greater than the first one, and in less than 90 days, the great Democratic Party held its national convention in the new hall and nominated for President of the United States William Jennings Bryan. And our success at building the new hall was talked about all over the world. Other great events have come to pass since then, but it remained for last night to be the greatest social event ever happened in the 19th century on the last day of the year, month, and century. It certainly was a great success socially and financially. Box seats at the ball sold as high as $350. Kansas City is already a good place to live in. I have lived here 20 years and have seen Kansas City grow up from a wild frontier town to a great city of 250,000 souls. And as I have so much confidence in the future greatness of Kansas City, I confidently expect that you will live here 100 years hence, and no doubt a great ball will be given in honor of this auspicious occasion of the opening of the Century Box, January 1st, 2001. I hope you will have a good time and tip the light fantastic as we did last night. I will now drink a toast to your health. My great grandfather died at the age of 108, my grandfather 96, my father still lives. I am 39 years old, have 3 sons, Thomas Lee 14 years, Harry Lee Ray 9 years, and George Henry 7 years. I will close with the season's greetings, yours very truly, Gottfried Peter Siebenthaler.
Is there a Siebenthaler here?
No,
No Siebenthaler.
Sieben.
these are simply blank letterhead for the commercial club and the convention hall. Give you an idea of what it looked like. The Manual and Directory of the Public Schools of Kansas City, Missouri from 1900 and 1901.
It's so dark I can't see it.
It lists all of the teachers, janitors, principals, superintendents, and assistant superintendents of the schools. One of the documents that was reported in the newspaper several times was a poem written by Ruby Archer. I don't know, he didn't read that, did he? Do we want to?
Yeah. It's just an enclosure for the real meat. We won't open that. How about that?
Okay, this one would be
Oh my. That Siebenthaler thing, apparently this goes with it.
Can you read it?
We did that one already.
This is a TypeScript version.
This was written by Ruby Archer, dated December 31st, 1900. A message from the Century Ball. Dear men and women, sometime to be called from infinite to finite for a life, our thoughts yearn forth to greet you, and our breath is caught with eagerness to tell you all. We hope for you, our children's children's children. What earth will be when men are brothers all, whose purpose is to bring it to the plan that God in wisdom left to human toil. And though, as our electric fires will pale before some new Prometheus gift, our joys will seem of little worth in light of yours. And you will smile in pity just as we, or pleasures that our grandsires' fathers loved. Yet know that we had hours of happiness. Perhaps our books will say that these were isles in bitter seas of sorrows and desires. But heed them not. Let only to your ears on mystic understreams of memory the echoes of our revel music drift. We dance tonight. We dance the old year out, the century as well. The lights caress. A silken murmur thrills the flower-sweet air. We dream the dream of youth. We float adown the mazy path of melody. We feel our hearts as vibrant as the violins. We dance, obeying all their sweet unrest. Love crowned, we dance, forgetful of all pain, lost in Elysian dreams of life to be. One word to you while chime the midnight bells, one word from lips that long to dower you. Oh, live your life with reverence for life. O trample not the blossoms of the hours in dust, with hot, impatient feet that press to reach a bauble prize of gold. Each hour, an opening rose, lift gratefully and lay upon your heart. Bend down and kiss it all, the yielding flower, the barren leaves, the thorns.
I'd like to read you an excerpt from an article, this time from the December 19th Journal, and the headline is Causes Comment, Our Century Ball Discussed in Other Cities, the subheading or the subtitle, Eastern Papers Full of It. And at home it is talked about everywhere. Of course, this is referring to the Century Ball. The idea original with Kansas City of giving a Century Ball on December 31st to usher in the 20th century has advertised this city more than any other one thing except the Democratic National Convention. Eastern papers have made many and favorable comments upon this latest show of enterprise on the part of the Western metropolis, and several Sunday editions of well-known dailies have had page accounts of the event. In a prominent St. Louis paper of last Sunday, there was a page of the Kansas City Century Ball with pictures of the ball, or pictures of the hall, and of some of the men who have been prominent in pushing the enterprise to success. After Kansas City had sprung the idea of a Century Ball, it was only a few days until other cities took up the proposition, and some other cities sprung the plan as all their own. But there were many fair newspapers which acknowledged the authorship of Kansas City, and they have invariably given us the credit. Representatives of Eastern newspapers in Kansas City have been receiving many orders for general stories on the Century Ball, and the latest development, that of having an archive for depositing cards of the attendance to be opened by the mayor of Kansas City 100 years from now, has attracted unusual attention.
A lot of just small pieces of paper, am I on?
Yeah.
That contain the names and the date of individuals. We assume that these are actually little notes that were left at the convention hall, at the ball. Happy New Year, happy to meet you, old friend, how are you? Thomas J. Clark. It's 714 West 11th Street. This was signed on January 1st, 1901 at 3:30 p.m.
This fell. I don't know if that's. Looks like, well, it fell. It might have come out with it.
I think it may be Barbie Fan. I don't think it is. This appears to be part of a fan, but it's signed by a number of people. That includes Lucy Burnham, Maud Allen, R.M. Yates, Elizabeth, I can't read it, but there's a series of names. I don't see Lipscomb, but
I can't.
it says fan used by Irene Kenneth at the Century Ball. And then it has a series of signatures of other people as well. portion of a fan, and this is probably the one that they were describing. This is greetings to the Chief of Police, Kansas City, Missouri. Do we have a member of the police department here? Would you like to read the letter to the Chief of Police?
This is to the Chief of Police. Dear Chief, I congratulate you on your new position and hope you may have success such as we are having at present. The weather is a little cold tonight, but we are having a delightful time. I hope there will be a great many changes in the police department in the way of detecting criminals and the treatment of them. When you come up above, look me up. I will be glad to see you. Wishing you a happy, happy New Year. I am very truly yours, John Hayes, Chief of Police.
If you remember earlier, David was talking about the sale of tickets to the ball. Just read an excerpt from an article. This was December 27th in the Journal, talking about the efforts to sell tickets. And the title is End Drawing Near, Redoubled Activity by Century Ball Committees. It says, this will be a day of supreme exertion. Now, this was only about 4 days before the ball. On the part of the members of the Century Ball Executive Committee, and every member will be expected to report the sale of his full quota of dancing tickets at the meeting of the committee tonight. While there is yet much to be done in the way of disposing of tickets and completing other details of the final arrangements, the Executive Committee has taken hold of the work in a very enthusiastic way, and there are satisfactory assurances that the great event will far eclipse the most sanguine expectations of the committee. At last night's meeting of the Executive Committee, there were informal reports of several subcommittees which indicated commendable progress along all lines. In effect, it was that every one of the 64 boxes had been sold. David referred to those boxes for an aggregate sum of $6,450, or an average of $100.78 each. A great deal of enthusiasm was shown on the part of all the members, and as the end of their labors draws nearer, there is more and more inclination among them to take advantage of every possibility in the big enterprise to make a substantial sum for Kansas City's great convention hall.
This is a newspaper that's been prepared called the 20th Century, 100 years ahead of its times. The editor is J.F. Whiting. It was published Saturn 43, 2000. This is volume 1, number 1. Headlines include Signaling Mars, efforts of more than 50 years of scientific study and experiment rewarded at last. Mars answers our signals. World capital, Kansas City, USA, wins out after an exciting contest among the principal cities of the world. A spectacular celebration, $50,000 worth of fireworks, 8,000 feet above the city. Kansas City, USA. Now let me tell you that Kansas City, USA was the combination of Kansas City, Kansas and Kansas City, Missouri into a single entity. And it became the capital of the world in its offices. There were people in 1900 who seriously believed that the capital of the United States would be moved to Kansas City. And in fact, there is a letter that I'm sure we may find which says that in our time it was Washington City, in your time we know that it would be Kansas City. And they gave good excuses and good explanations for that. Obviously our location, but also the vitality and the purpose of our city was extraordinary and would be rewarded. This obviously puts us even in a higher level by making us the capital of the world. I'm a Kansas City historian. I haven't seen this before. This is a very interesting item.